Salida, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Jim and welcome to the Sounds German review of the new Oomph album Ritual. Talking about Oomph is like talking about any other band that is basically considered somewhat of a pillar of the industry. It feels a bit redundant. Oomph release albums since the early 90s, and while their roots are in the EBM and industrial area, at some point they switched over into Neue Deutsche Härte territory, a genre that has been popularized the world over thanks to Rammstein. And indeed does Oomph also deliver mostly a combination of heavy guitars, drums, keyboards and somewhat aggressively shouted lyrics on this album. The peak of their success was undoubtedly the 2004 released album Wahrheit oder Pflicht, or more specifically the track Augen auf. I remember seeing that video on our TV stations for what seems like an eternity. The album with the song on it was so far the only album going platinum for the band, but their success somewhat dropped down again over time. I think this is due to the saturation of the market they were moving in, and it seems possible a lot of people who loved Augen auf had no idea what history the band has. But they made the top 10 in Germany multiple times after that, and Ritual here, their 13th full-length album, is already confirmed on the number 1 spot of the German charts as I write this review, which is a first for the band. Even Wahrheit oder Pflicht, quote-unquote, only made it to the number 2 spot. And undoubtedly, the experience Oomph has collected so far shows in this album with a very solidified and straight Neue Deutsche Härte style and lyrics that cover some pretty dark topics actually. Oomph has never been ashamed to handle topics of politics or religion in their songs, and you will find a lot of that on Ritual too, some of it better done than others. Oomph has never been ashamed to handle topics of politics or religion in their songs, and you will find a lot of that on Ritual too, some of it better done than others. The opening track, 1000 Mann und ein Befehl for example, tries to disassemble the military, but it uses hyperbolism to an almost comical degree. Like, people who don't want to serve are being put against the wall. I could probably understand stuff like that if they were an American band for example, where serving the military has a completely different value in society, but here in Germany we even got rid of having to serve any duty a while ago. Meanwhile, introducing the hook, which sounds a bit too happy for the topic, by shouting "No more wars!" It has a bit of a childlike naivety to it, to say it lightly. The dark atmosphere created by the punchy drums and heavy guitar waltz is continued throughout the rest of the album. The disc does not really have any sort of happy tracks on it, and given the topics the band covers, it would have probably felt pretty inappropriate to have so. You have, for example, child abuse being tackled in Trümmerkinder, or abuse through the church in Das Schweigen der Lämmer, surely somewhat inspired by the latest scandal from that area. So a dark and sometimes even sinister atmosphere, especially when vocalist Dero shows what he can really do, like for example in Das Schweigen der Lämmer, is something the band has undoubtedly gotten right here. And in terms of the music itself, possibly to nobody's surprise, Oomph don't really have any huge missteps on this disc either. But, and that might not surprise you either a whole lot, the album does not have any real surprises ready for you. What you get here for the most part are very straight Neue Deutsche Härte tracks that sometimes diverge a little bit from the path, like putting the very clean keyboard sounds more front and center in Kein Liebeslied, or the almost western-like washed out guitars in the beginning of Das Schweigen der Lämmer. And sure, if all you want are some fat guitars and shouted lyrics synced up into a stompy rhythm, Ritual certainly delivers a whole lot of that. But having listened to some Neue Deutsche Härte before this album, it felt like I have listened to it all before someplace else. Because when it comes to the compositions, as I said before, there are really no surprises to be found here. It's quite by the book. I also have to say that I find the quality of the lyrics surprisingly fluctuating between tracks. Sure, given the genre we are talking about, there are certain cliches I expected to be fulfilled, and I don't really expect the deepest of lyrics either. But on the one hand, you have lyrics that come off as heartfelt or at least taking the topic at hand seriously, and then you have tracks like Europa, a track about the refugee crisis, and you just have to scratch your head what the message is supposed to be. Same for Terror Ficken Hitler, which feels like it was only written so the title could be used, and the title was only to be used to raise some eyebrows, with the content being pure phrasemongering in the truest sense of the word. And then there is the song Seine Seele, which makes for an utterly disgraceful closing track on the normal edition of this album. The somewhat popish composition here can be easily forgiven. How Oomph utterly squandered the topic of abuse from the victim's point of view cannot. The bonus tracks cue themselves well enough with the rest of the album. Apparently the band liked Terror Ficken Hitler enough to give it a second go with the Lord of the Lost remix that honestly sounds like a pretty dull electro remix and not much more. If you really dig what the album delivers, I'd say go for the 2 bonus tracks and the 1 remix, but there are no hidden gems to be found here. So, as a conclusion, Ritual is cookie cutter at best. There are no real complete duds on this album, but the lyrics are on thin ice more than once for sure. But even when not, the album lacks any finesse or details to stand out and leave an impression. If you want to dip your toes into the genre or are really craving the next Neue Deutsche Härte fix, this album is an okay choice, but certainly nothing special. Ritual is par for the course, which is both sad and ironic considering that Oomph are one of the bands who invented the course decades ago. Now, however, it feels like the innovators of yore have become just another fish in the pond. So, I hope you enjoyed this review, and if you did, leave a like for the video or just subscribe to the channel if you haven't already and want more reviews for bands and artists you have probably never heard of before. If you have listened to the album, let me know with a comment what you thought about it, and if you want to check it out now, you can find all the relevant links in the description below. You can also find my social media accounts linked there. If you want to check out some random music, I do post at least 1 music video per day there. Thank you very much for watching, I hope to see you again next time. Have a nice day, Salida.